Where are we at in society today? Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
Go ahead. Make my day.
Every single week, I put my freaking heart and soul into this. I don't go out there and laugh. It's not funny. It's not fun. Nothing's funny to me. I don't want to go out there and get embarrassed on Monday Night Football in front of everybody.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
So ain't nothing changed from yesterday. Still the same person I was yesterday. And I got the same thing for you that I had yesterday. You know why I'm here.
You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire. Get out. For the next.
It should make you feel a little different. You know, just a little bit different. This time of the year is going to make you feel different anyway, I would hope. Make you feel a little bit more cheery. Make you feel a little bit more patient with people, perhaps. Although at the mall, maybe that's a little different. I don't know. But football-wise, after watching what the Lions did yesterday, I hope it makes you feel a little bit different. Hi, everybody. On a Monday morning, welcome. On the Monday of Christmas, welcome to X's and Bros across the great state of Michigan. I'm Matt Shepard. Trent Balla is our producer, and the Meyer hotline is 866-838-4843. The text line is Sports Radio to 21,000. We are live throughout the state. We are in Cadillac, and we're in Lansing, and we're in Traverse City, and we're in Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo, and we're in Petoskey, and we're in Charlevoix, and we're also throughout the state and throughout the country on YouTube and Facebook, and, of course, on X as well. Lions complete the season sweep of the Bears, 34-17, the final there. They improved to 13-2. The 13 wins are a franchise record. They remain the only unbeaten team on the road this year at 7-0. And I don't think enough should be or can be or has been said of just how they have gone out and handled their business on the road, wherever it may be, Minnesota or Houston or even yesterday in Chicago. It was a really impressive win for Detroit, and they did it decisively. They did it by carving them up through the air and on the ground. And I while watching this game, I was thinking to myself a little bit, Jared Goff is pitching it all around the yard, right? I mean, he throws it 32 times. And I wondered how many people out there were thinking, we're throwing it too much. It's cold. It's windy. They're playing the Bears. Shouldn't they be running it a lot more? I mean, that was the theme when they lost to Tampa, and that was the theme when they lost to Buffalo, even though Buffalo had lost the week before to the Rams by the Rams throwing it all over the yard. So people don't like it when Detroit's throwing it too much. They like more running the football. That's who we are. That's what our offensive line is built for. This is the Lions' DNA. Well, they threw it 32 times. They ran it 32 times. It was the ultimate imbalance, and they forced some turnovers, and they pressured Caleb Williams just enough. I worried about how they were going to cover the Bears wide receivers. The Bears wide receivers are good. They were talking about it throughout the broadcast yesterday, and I've been saying this all season long. I've been saying if there is an attractive place for Ben Johnson to land, the Lions offensive coordinator, it would be Chicago because of what they have offensively. DeAndre Swift's a really good player. DJ Moore's a really good player. Roma Dunze was a high draft pick. And, of course, you have Keenan Allen. And you have Cole Knecht, who's a really, really good defense or tight end. Caleb Williams comes out of his shell a little bit under Ben Johnson. They were talking about that throughout the broadcast yesterday. And, of course, a lot of that is discussed because of the article this past week and Ben Johnson and how intrigued he is with Chicago's possibility there. But the bottom line is Detroit was more talented on both sides of the ball, and they pressured Caleb Williams just enough, I thought. You got to give them credit, man. Give Detroit a ton of credit for the stuff that they've been able to do. And as I said last week, why I was so confident is because of Aaron Glenn. I figured he would put his guys in situations where they were going to be successful. I thought he would be able to take the new guys that he has come to coach up a little bit over the last couple of weeks and still be able to use them in the proper scheme, that they would adjust a little bit more and he would adjust to them. It's an underrated part of preparation on the part of Aaron Glenn, the defense, and how they were going to attack the Chicago Bears. Did they get burned a little bit? Ezekiel Turner on a touchdown pass from Caleb Williams? Yes, and that is bound to happen. I never thought there would be a shutout. I didn't think they would walk their way to a victory, although this sure seems like it's as close as you can possibly get. Detroit's 34-17 win keeps them atop the NFC. Good for them. Meanwhile, Philadelphia goes into Washington. And this is why I stress about the road games, right? I mean, the Bills, perhaps a little bit of a letdown. Look at how challenging it was for them to beat New England at home. And Buffalo was down 14-0 before they finally got a little bit of a rhythm there. Look at the struggles that Philadelphia had. Look at Tampa's struggles. Isn't it odd? Tampa goes into Ford Field in week 2 and beats the Lions. Last night they go into Dallas and they fail to finish the job, 26-24. You can look at it throughout all of the NFL. Not that it happens to every single game, but look at the struggles teams have on the road this year. Look at how daunting and challenging it can be. The Broncos couldn't get their final win to get a playoff spot in LA against the Chargers, could they? No, they couldn't. Pittsburgh has been a pretty good football team pretty regularly lately. They couldn't beat the Ravens in Baltimore. Some of the other games you don't even have to worry about. The Rams did a nice job actually going in and beating the Jets. But my point is, with the Eagles, plenty to play for, right? Arizona, plenty to play for. Can't get it done on the road. Minnesota, they needed a late comeback. They nipped the Seahawks 27-24. Maybe now people will give the Vikings a little bit more credit than they've been giving them all season long, and Kevin O'Connell and the kind of coaching job that he has done. But you look at the 7-0 Lions on the road, there's no reason. I know you don't want to go into Philly. I don't necessarily want to go into Philly either. But the way this team has played on the road, the building up of not even confidence, I mean, just their abilities, their knowledge of the whole conditions and all that other stuff that it requires for you to go in there and make sure you take care of your business. Detroit has done that. So Philly loses to Washington on a last-second 36-33 final. Incredible comeback win for the Washington Commanders. They have done that, 3 times now? They did it against Dallas. They did it against Chicago. And now they've done it against Philadelphia. And I'm just waiting to hear people say, well, they've needed all these late comebacks for them to get into the postseason. We reserve that for Kansas City, don't we? That's why it goes back to me just saying, I don't care how you get them, man. I really don't. I just care that you do get them. And I know eventually you're going to use it as a barometer, right? I mean, just like we did with the college football playoff that we'll get to a little bit later on, you used the reasoning between one team and another is because of the close wins or the poor scheduling, Indiana, so on and so forth. I get it. It might be the final result. But as you're leading up to that, that doesn't mean you take away from what a team has been able to accomplish. I know. I watched the entire Chiefs game too. I thought there was 2 holdings on a couple of plays. I thought the Houston Texans got jobbed on a couple of plays. I don't know if it made the difference. I don't. But we do know that Kansas City has been the beneficiary. Let's put it this way. The beneficiary of plenty of calls so far this year. One last headline for you. Michigan gets a much-needed win over Purdue-Fort Wayne. Who cares? 89-58. U of M shoots 53%, put 5 in double figures, led by Trey Donaldson, 16. All right, here's the poll question for the day. What do you think of the first round of the college football playoff? I loved it. I liked it. I hated it. You can vote as often as you like. We'll give you the results 8 o'clock tomorrow morning right here on X's and BrO's. When we come back, your thoughts on the Lions and my thoughts on losing another childhood star. That's up next on X's and BrO's on a Monday morning throughout the great state of Michigan. Glad you're with us. There are certain athletes that help define your childhood, right? Certain people you follow, certain people who impacted you in a certain way. You may not be able to throw a football like a certain player, but you wanted to be like them. You may never been able to get to the height of the sport that they played, but that didn't mean you weren't going to imitate them on a number of different occasions. There are a lot of athletes for me, but there are certain athletes that define your childhood. And for me, one of those athletes, one of them, was Ricky Henderson. He passed away at the age of 65 over the weekend. Greatest leadoff hitter of all time. And I don't think it's close. And he's also the greatest base stealer of all time. And I know it's not close. 1,406 career stolen bases. Never be touched. 130 steals back in 1982 is a single season record. Will never be matched. 12 times he led the major leagues in stolen bases. That will not be surpassed. He ended his career scoring 2,295 runs. He ended his career with 2,190 walks. He belted 297 homers that I don't think gets nearly enough pub. He hit 81 homers to lead off a game, which, again, will not be duplicated. And his 111 career WAR, wins above replacement, 111.1 to be exact, third most ever by a player in the last 25 years, only surpassed by Barry Bonds and A-Rod, which has a little bit of taint to it. You know what I mean? He collected over 3,000 hits, really impressive, and was a first ballot Hall of Famer. On the Hall of Fame, he was listed on 94.8% of the ballots in 2009. There's actually more than one person out there. Some idiot chose not to vote for Ricky Henderson. Some moron, somebody who claims to know baseball, somebody who thinks they follow baseball, somebody who feels like they have a larger impact on the game than the guy who did all those accomplishments that I just told you about, in addition to other things that I'll soon inform you of, felt like, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Somebody actually took that stance. Somebody had a ballot in front of them and saw Ricky Henderson. And before you vote, at least you should have a pretty good idea of what this guy's all about. You don't want to dive into the 10-time All-Star. That's fine. How about the fact that this dude was a 2-time World Series champion? How about the fact that this dude was a league MVP? How about this fact that this dude had all those numbers I've already told you about? WAR, career steals, home runs, hits. What was it about his resume that somebody, more than one, felt like, can't do it? Can't put him on that ballot today. I digress. Yes, he was boisterous. Yes, he was self-promoting. Yes, I don't think there's another athlete who's used themselves in the third person like Ricky Henderson, but he was a special talent. There's no doubt about it. As soon as he came out of Oakland Tech High School, which, by the way, also gave us Curt Flood of Major League Baseball, Joe Morgan of Major League Baseball, Vada Pinson of Major League Baseball, Frank Robinson of Major League Baseball, Dave Stewart of Major League Baseball, Lloyd Mosby of Major League Baseball, Gary Pettis of Major League Baseball, all from that one high school. It gave you 7 other impactful major league baseball players. I might be pushing it a little bit with Lloyd Mosby, but you get, he still played Toronto, Detroit, played quite a bit. On top of that, there were 2 NBA players who came out of Oakland Tech High School. Paul Silas, Seattle primarily, and turned out to be a pretty good coach. Oh, and Bill Russell, one of the best players of all time. That high school, Oakland Tech High School in Oakland, California, gave you all those players. Was Ricky Henderson the best? No, he was not. Frank Robinson, Bill Russell, you would argue, are the 2 best athletes coming out, at least of those names that I've mentioned. Sometimes there are better high school players than pros. I mean, sometimes guys in high school were as good, if not better, than the guys who ended up being elite professionals. Doesn't happen very often, but once in a while you'll find that. But Ricky Henderson is a piece of my childhood that was really important, because oftentimes when we were kids, we would imitate baseball players. When we would ride our bikes, put the glove through the handlebars or glove through the bat, the handle of the bat, and bag our lunch and head up to the local field and play baseball every day in the summer. Right field is out. Sometimes left field was out just so you could hit the other way. That's what we did. And we would bring the helmets we used to get for $5 at Tiger Stadium. You'd go out there, and while everybody was collecting every single Tiger helmet, we would collect every helmet in baseball. And we would put them on a bench, and we would pick one up, and then we had to imitate the player we thought exemplified that franchise, that team. And for the Oakland A's, a lot of times, not always, because sometimes it was Reggie Jackson, sometimes it was Joe Rudy, sometimes it was Joe Morgan, sometimes it was Gene Tennis, sometimes it was Sal Bando. It was never Burnt Campaneris because he was a jackass. Well, Ry Carew didn't play for Oakland, but anytime it was Oakland, eventually somebody would say Ricky Henderson, right? He was after that crew, of course. That crew was even before Ricky Henderson. But I mean, all those guys, so many great players who played for that franchise. And Ricky Henderson was among, if not the best to play for that franchise. Now, again, he played in a different era of the guys I just mentioned. But I'm talking about as, childhood. That was part of it. And I feel bad for people who didn't get a chance to watch him play. Now, the games weren't on every single day like they are these days. And yes, you've had a chance to go back and check things out on YouTube, perhaps. And that would be my hope, right? But he truly was one of the greatest players of all time. All the things that he's done on the field of play warrant all the attention that he's gotten. But you can't necessarily appreciate it unless you either A, watched him in person, or B, followed his career as it was taking place. Spent 14 years in Oakland in the Hall of Fame career that spanned a lot of other teams, of course, with the Yankees and the Blue Jays and a number of other teams, the Red Sox for a period of time as well. But Ricky Henderson at the age of 65, gone way too soon. When we come back, we'll dive back into Lions discussion. Your thoughts and your impressions and just how much that team did impress you with a win yesterday. I'll tell you what the most impressive thing, at least in my mind, was, and it wasn't necessarily physically. We'll talk about it next on X's and BrO's.
Huge here for my good friend Josh Garvey. Now, Josh joins me in studio every Thursday.
Great job. Great job. Here's what's crazy is at some point we're going to look back and say, man, we just got 13 wins, franchise record. Detroit Lions, never done this before in the history of this franchise. We're going to be able to look back and say that. But not yet. Not yet. Because you know what we got to do next week? We got to win, man. We got to win. But you know what we said? Play Detroit Lions football. We did that and get the W. You guys did that. And we may roll it all the way down the table just like this. You find a way to win the game. And we found a way to win the game. We lean on each other, and we use all parts.
Tigers have not, or Lions have not lost back-to-back games since 2022 when they dropped 5 in a row. That's how good and consistent this team has been. Welcome back, X's and Bros. We're glad you're with us Monday through Friday from 6 until 9. The first time that Jack Fox punted for the Lions in Chicago against the Bears was under 6 minutes left in the game. The game was already in hand. And yes, we can talk about Jared Goff, 3 touchdown passes. He now has a career high, a single season career high with 33. And yes, we can talk about Jahmyr Gibbs and his ability to carry the load. He touched the ball 20 of the first 33 plays. It was not as big a deal as people thought. Not that the injury to David Montgomery isn't. It is. I'm talking about the ability to give the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs or have him involved on a more regular basis and whether or not he can perform. If you were watching and listening last week when we had Tim Twentyman on of DetroitLions.com, their senior writer, he said, look back at what Jahmyr Gibbs did last year when David Montgomery was hurt and look at how well he performed. It was really strong performances. He gave another strong performance yesterday. You know who else gave a really strong performance? Was the offensive line, as usual, even though it was without Graham Glasgow. You know who else gave a really strong performance? Jamison Williams. Williams, despite his stupidity on one play where early on he gets an unsportsmanlike call, he was really good in so many other ways. I mean, look at, and I know people will get caught up in the long touchdown pass. I was talking about blocking now, first and foremost, because those are some of the things that impressed me more than anything else. What Detroit does this year, or what they have done so far this year, is they've done so many of the little things right that oftentimes don't show up in a box score. We get caught up in number of targets, number of catches, number of yards, number of touchdowns, how many tackles broken after first contact. And we have to recall that in order for Detroit's running game to be as stout and as consistent as his has been, and it has been, you need everybody involved. Outside of Jared Goff finally handing off the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Craig Reynolds, whomever, okay? Those guys got to block downfield. Not every play is going to work, but watch the wide receivers blocking downfield. Watch the seal blocking by the tight ends, led by Sam Laporta. And it'll make you even that more impressed about what Detroit has been able to accomplish day in and day out. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And yes, I understand that a guy like Jamison Williams, his primary responsibility is to beat the defenses vertically, and he did a really nice job of it. In fact, he has done such a good job of it so far this season. He is in among the best of all time in one specific category that we will get to here in a moment. Gibbs has joined elite Lions and NFL company now, and what he has accomplished so far this year. There are only 3 running backs in the history of the Detroit Lions who have over 1,500 yards from scrimmage and 15 touchdowns in the same season. Those running backs are the great Barry Sanders, the great Billy Sims, and now Jahmyr Gibbs. He doesn't do that without an offensive line, wide receivers, and tight ends blocking for him downfield. It's not a one-man show. As good as Saquon Barkley has been this year and deserves to be in the MVP conversation, he doesn't get it done without his offensive line. As good as Jared Goff has been this year, he doesn't get it done without his offensive line. Folks, we said this on Friday. There's a reason Brock Purdy bought his entire offensive line trucks. Not just the starters, but the backups as well, because his bread is buttered when those guys do their jobs. And those guys have done their jobs really, really well this season. They've gotten the accolades. They deserve the accolades. But so many things really, really impressive. Jamison Williams, and I've been critical of him, and I think he's deserved it. But Williams, against the Bears, 5 catches, a career best 143 yards. And yes, that is what gains the headlines. But he's averaged 8.9 yards after the catch per reception so far this year. That is the most among any wide receiver in the National Football League with at least 40 targets. That tells you something. It tells you that I think the Lions, the coaching the Lions have given to him, all right, led by Antoine Randall, their wide receivers coach, the Lions coaching to him and his willingness to accept it. Again, I've been critical of him, but in this situation and in so many other situations, you've got to give him a ton of credit. His willingness to block downfield, that takes a guy who is willing to coach him in that regard, Antoine Randall, and a guy who's willing to receive the coaching in Jamison Williams. That's important, number one. Number two, his toughness and ability to break blocks or break tackles, really important. Give him a ton of credit for that as well. He is turning into a complete wide receiver. I also notice, he doesn't drop a lot of passes, does he? So he may be sometimes a knucklehead at times about certain situations and certain decisions, and you got to get that out of him. Dan Campbell was seen talking to him very strongly, but very supportively on the sidelines after making that stupid play early on that resulted in an unsportsmanlike conduct play. Now, Trent and I were texting back and forth, and I was pissed off about it, and Trent was defending him, and I get it. But he either had to say something, but he also spun the football. I don't believe spinning a football deserves a penalty.
No,
right?
people do it all the time.
People do it all the time. That's not the point. The point is he may have a reputation that he has to shake, and he has to understand that. And you have to be bigger than the team. But that's not why I wanted to talk about Jamison Williams. I wanted to give him credit. I want to tell you just how good I think he has been in so many other areas than just catching the football and running with it. I get why we are wrapped up in his numbers, but some of the other things that he's done has been really impressive. The thing that impressed me most about the Lions' effort wasn't even physical. I think it was more mental than anything else. And that's why I started this segment saying Detroit has not lost back-to-back games since 2022. That's really impressive, man.
They've lost 5 in a row more recently than they've lost 2 in a row.
Yeah, and that was 2022
insane.
when they lost 5 in a row. That's really impressive. For this team to be able to go out and flush not just the losses, and there's only been 2 of them. We need to remind people of that. Tampa in week 2 and then Buffalo 2 weeks ago. For them to be able to flush it so quickly, move on, and kind of turn back the doubters. There's doubters out there, man. There's a lot of people who don't think this team can get this done because of their defense. And sometimes it may be in your friend group. They may be wearing a Lions jersey and a Lions hat, but deep down inside, they're thinking, I'm not sure this can happen. And the reason they don't think it can happen is because of the injuries. And what this team has done is said, forget about the injuries. Not that we forget about the player, because we love Aiden Hutchinson. We love Alex Anzalone, right? We love a lot of the guys who are really impactful for us this year. But we have to move on. We can't dwell on it. No one's going to feel sorry for you, and no one's coming to change things. You've got to change it with the people that you have. So people have to elevate their game, and they have done that. DJ Reader was really good against Chicago, right? Zadarius Smith was really good against Chicago. Yes, you miss Aleem McNeil. Yes, you miss a lot of the really good players, Carlton Davis. But you know what? When you get Robertson in there making his first start as a Lion, that's impressive, okay? For you to go out and do what they did. I know the second half. I saw it, okay? I understand that Chicago moved the ball. Did you think they were going to pitch a shutout and force a 3 and out every single time Chicago had the football?
No.
I didn't. And if that's your expectation, then you're going to be really bummed out by the time the game is over, because that's just not the way NFL football works. It just doesn't.
Even if they're fully healthy.
Okay? Even if they're fully healthy. Even if Carlton Davis is on the corner, Alex Anzalone's still in the middle, Aleem McNeil's still in the middle, Aiden Hutchinson's off the edge.
They're going to give up
and
some
of the
points
other
every now and
guys,
then.
maybe it'd be, I don't know who it might be, anybody else off the other edge. You know what you're going to have a problem with? Those guys are going to have to complete a first down. Those guys are actually going to score a touchdown once in a while. Sometimes they're going to kick a field goal. Sometimes you're going to be trailing. That's football. That's sports. This is what happens, okay? I say this all the time. Oh, but they had to come from behind to do it. You think Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and Joe Montana and John Elway and Dan Marino give a crap that they had to come from behind to get the win, or do you think they care only about that they got the win? That's all that really matters, right? For you, in the end, when you're looking up the numbers of a quarterback or of a team on a certain season, when you look at it and you say, man, they're 13-2. 10 years from now, are you going to be talking with your buddies and say, yeah, but the problem with that was, they had to come from 10 points down to beat Minnesota. They had to shut Houston out in the second half. Like the second half is any less important than the first half. The mindset to me, it just blows my mind. I can't get over it. I was at a party on Friday night, for a friend of mine, and we had a great time, right? But we're sitting there watching Notre Dame and Indiana, and eventually the Lions discussion comes up, and it's all the guys over here. The ladies are in the kitchen talking about whatever. All the guys are at a number of different TVs watching the game, but the conversation shifts to the Lions, and it gets bigger and it gets bigger. And all these people are like, I see a lot of their flaws, and I said to a guy, I go, have you watched any of the flaws of anybody else? Just out of curiosity. Like, they're 12-2 at the time. I said they're 12-2. How about Minnesota's flaws? Have you seen any of that? Have you seen Philadelphia's flaws? Have you seen the team that leads the NFC South and a flaw there? Or a team that's vying in the NFC West? Have you seen Kansas City's flaws? Have you seen Buffalo's flaws? I'm not sure about Buffalo's flaws. Oh, really? You haven't seen Buffalo? You only saw them the one time they played against the Lions? How about Pittsburgh? How about Baltimore? Have you seen those flaws? I mean, people act like there's a perfect team out there. I don't think I've seen one outside of Miami when they finished unbeaten, and I'll guarantee you there's some things that Don Shula didn't feel like his team was all that great at. It's going to happen, right? This team mentally is as good as any team I've ever seen for their ability to work through so much. How many guys are on the IL? 22? They're able to work through that. They're able to bring guys in on just a moment's notice and have them contribute to a win, making everybody feel like, yeah, we've got this. We're bigger collectively than the individual. And it feels like sometimes they're going up against everybody else, and even though they're 13-2, that can be a really good feeling. When you can sit there and look at the guy next to you and say, it's you and me and everybody in this room against everybody else, because there are so many people who are doubting us. I can't wait to hear this week now the new mantra. Since last week's was, well, Dan Campbell can't get it done. Well, this team can't play through its injuries. It's one loss. It's 2 losses overall. And as Aaron Glenn said, to think that the sky is falling is dumb. And it was dumb. And what's funny about it is the people who were chanting that, trumpeting that, and spewing that are people who supposedly have been in very similar situations and been able to battle through it before in their careers and don't understand just how tough you have to be mentally and physically a professional athlete. You have to be able to forget the wins and forget the losses. You have to be able to dwell on certain things that have made you successful in life. Tom Brady has said it time and time again. It's some of the best video clips you will ever see. Go find it. When he's speaking about how you have to be different and how you learn more from your losses than you do from your wins. And that's exactly what Detroit has done this year. Even though it's only been 2 losses, they have learned so much and been able to implement that right away the next week. It's a beautiful thing to watch. It's an awesome thing for us to be able to talk about a team that even after a loss, you see some good things, you understand, and you're confident in them. Truly confident. 100%. You should be confident that this coaching staff and this team responds the way it does. And you know what? By Wednesday, when they get back out on the practice field and they'll have an extra day prep because it's a Monday night football game against San Francisco, when they get back on the practice field on Wednesday, they will have forgotten what they did against Chicago. They'll be able to say, you know what?
Moving on.
We're moving on. You heard it in the clip with Dan Campbell. You know what? We got to win next week. So they start to prepare starting today, and then they'll move on Wednesday, and they'll be turning that proverbial page, and they'll get ready to play San Francisco, who's already been eliminated, which doesn't mean anything. They can still go out there and give you a fight. The Jets have been eliminated a long time ago. They put a scare into the Rams a little bit yesterday, didn't they? You bet they did. Here's our phone number, the Meyer Hotline, 866-838-4843. You can text the program, Sports Radio, to 21,000. It's a good day. It's been a good season. I don't care if they win or they lose. It has been a good season so far to enjoy Detroit Lions football. Even after the losses, I enjoyed the games.
Well, something
Because I thought
specifically
they were better than Tampa, and Buffalo was just better. Now, Trent, really, it was strange watching Buffalo play New England yesterday. Maybe there's that hangover. Maybe if Buffalo comes out and plays with that type of hangover, if you want to attribute it to that, I think it's fair, right? I mean, they're human. Where was Detroit's hangover this year?
couldn't find it.
Seriously, I'm not trying to act like they're the greatest football team I've ever seen, because they're not. But those are the things that really make the difference between certain teams. They don't let each week affect them week to week. You could talk about a possible hangover against Buffalo. I would strongly disagree, but Buffalo was just better that day. It was tough to stop them defensively. And I think if they meet them in the Super Bowl, I think Detroit's going to have a completely different attack.
Sign me up for that. Yeah. I would love a rematch with the Bills.
I would love it too. I don't know if we're going to get it because Kansas City looked pretty good, but that's the beauty. Week to week, you're looking at it. For me, week to week, the Lions have been the best team in the NFL. We'll get to your thoughts on it, texts, and phone calls coming up next on X's and BrO's.
Saturday, December 28th at Soaring Eagle Casino.
Second hour of the program. Glad you're with us. X's and BrO's Monday through Friday, 6 until 9. On these same affiliates, it'll be the huge show a little bit later on from 3 until 6. He'll be talking about all the things that matter most to you, including this Lions win over the Bears to get them to 13-2 on the year, 7-0 on the road. Jared Goff with 336 yards and 3 touchdowns. The 3 touchdowns now a career best. Now, is it as much as Peyton Manning in 2013 with Denver? No, he had 55 touchdowns that year. Tom Brady in 2007 with New England? No, he had 50 touchdowns that year. Patrick Mahomes has had 50. Manning's had 49 when he was in Indy in 2014. Doesn't matter. Bottom line is that Jared Goff has guided a very balanced offense. And one of the best offenses, the best offense in football so far this year. And he has done it with great class, great precision, and spreading the wealth, hitting so many different receivers. By the way, when we were talking about Jameson Williams and his ability to block downfield, he's not the only one. Did you watch Tim Patrick block at all?
I would say that's one of Tim Patrick's best assets because he wasn't really in the game plan yesterday, but he's downfield blocking like hell.
Yeah, but he has to.
Yeah.
Because he's not in the game plan.
That's his impact.
If you want to
exactly.
get on the field, you better make sure you bring something to the table.
And he does.
Nobody else does. Now, other guys do. Amon-Ra St. Brown blocks downfield. Jameson Williams blocks downfield. But Tim Patrick, when he's out there, he's going to give you everything you got. He's been a really fun story to follow. He's been a really fun player to root for, like a lot of guys, I think, on this team. It's funny. There's one of my son's, my son's girlfriend's brother, all right, is a big Minnesota fan. He lives in Colorado, but he's a huge Vikings fan. And he said to my son not too long ago, he goes, I don't think anybody's rooting for the Lions. And my son looked at me and said, are you flipping nuts? He said, the Lions have taken the entire NFL by storm. You see their gear everywhere, and you see how much people travel. And there's a lot of people who say, if my team can't win it, I read those quotes last week, if you recall, after the loss to Buffalo, when Detroit lost Carlton Davis, they lost to Lee McNeil, and there was a national article about it. And I wanted to read the comments more than anything else because I already knew what the article was about, right? So you see all these people, those who, even Buffalo fans, if it can't be our team, I'd like it to be Detroit fans. That tells you something right there. I think Detroit they're a fun team to watch. As boring and unexciting as the Red Wings can be, the Lions are the complete opposite, and how enjoyable they are to watch, even in the 2 losses. Can it be frustrating sometimes? Absolutely. But overall, they are a thrilling team to watch on an every Sunday basis. Now, I had brought up Ben Johnson's name, and the reason I bring that up is because CBS Sports came out with an article regarding Johnson and regarding the latest news that he is, quote unquote, intrigued by the Bears head coaching job and will listen to the division rival. This, according to NFL.com, and a lot of different sources are saying that they're hearing that from Ben Johnson. Not that he is out there courting teams right now, okay? Don't think that. All you got to do is look at the game against Chicago and how well he called that and all the different aspects that Detroit has had and the different creative ways they go about it. And, of course, everybody's talking about how on purpose Jared Goff and Jahmyr Gibbs off play action stumbled a little bit, giving Chicago the belief
awesome.
that, you know what, I can take my eyes off somebody who just went past me because I think there's a fumble or I think they're going to sack him. And then, boom, Sam Laporta is wide open.
They give the fans a minor heart attack and then score a touchdown. It's perfect.
Yeah, and then score a touchdown. It wasn't like the 4th down conversion a week before when actually Jared Goff got stepped on. This was not intentional, or this one was intentional the way he went about it. Very creative. Obviously, they worked on it all week long. Those are the little nuances they try and create, but to implement them. I mean, doing it in practice is one thing. Knowing that you get a chance to do it over. Doing it and making sure you get it done right in a game to me, I mean, that's really impressive to me. I just, those are the things to me that are really, really tough to do. And they make it look so damn easy. There are too many times we just take it for granted. It's like swinging a golf. I mean, watching some of these guys hit a golf ball, it's just amazing to me. But anyway, so Ben Johnson, very creative. Don't think that he is out there courting certain teams and courting certain jobs, and he's got his eye and his focus on that. No. He doesn't have to worry about it. At age 38, he's going to have his pick of the NFL litter, and I think Aaron Glenn is going to as well. I mean, considering what Aaron Glenn's team has done, I don't know, do you realize how many yards Chicago rushed for yesterday? 59. And before you give me, well, Caleb Williams had a 107 quarterback rating, and look at what he did through the air.
No. Yeah. 59 is 59.
Did the same thing through the air, if not better, but Detroit still was able to run the football for well over 100 yards. All right, so there's a big difference. You want balance. You don't want one dominating aspect of it. All right? I mean, unless you're Michigan playing Ohio State, dominating the run game instead of the aerial attack and can get away with it, that's fine. But in the NFL, you want some balance, and we're going to get to that Ohio State here coming up. But the job that Chicago has is going to be enticing for a lot of people, right? I think it's the number one job out there. But according to the NFLmedia.com, Johnson is intrigued by the Bears head coaching job, and he is willing to listen. He has created, and who wouldn't be attracted to this, he has created the best scoring team in the NFL at 33 points per game, number 2 in total offense. And they finished in the top 5 in those categories a year ago. They've won 12 games in back-to-back years, now 13 games, so 12 last year, 13. He's a big reason for it. And Dan Campbell's tree, the roots of that tree, should dig deep, and it should be a complimentary thing. It should be a big compliment to Dan Campbell. I know that's how he looks at it, that he's got coordinators, that he has selected men who are really good leaders and can become really good head coaches someday. That's what great head coaches do, minus Bill Belichick, since a lot of his tree stinks. Okay, we
know all about that.
We know all about Matt Patricia. We know all about Josh McDaniels.
Bill O'Brien.
What's that?
Bill O'Brien as a head coach.
Well, Bill O'Brien, he did okay for a
year. Okay. He was fine. Yeah.
Well, not everyone's going to be Hall of Famers, but
I get your point.
I was going to say Charlie Weiss. So when you've got Matt Patricia, Charlie Weiss, Josh McDaniels, not once but twice. Josh McDaniels failed twice. That's a tough, humbling pill to swallow right there. I wouldn't call Bill Belichick's coaching tree anything special, but him as a head coach, absolutely special. This is a big compliment, I think, to Dan Campbell. It sucks as a Lions fan, but you don't think that's going to, I mean, you don't think he's going to stay there forever anyway, right? I mean, it's the same thing in really good assistant coaches in any sport. I got to be honest with you. I think at some point, some team may take a look at Chris Fetter and say,
I was just going to say,
he might be a guy who would be a good manager someday.
Absolutely.
They've done it before, and we've talked about this before on how pitching coaches, sometimes you talk about pigeonholed. I think that coach, as much as any other coach in sports, can get really pigeonholed. He's just a pitching coach. Where do you go? Honestly.
That's a great call on that.
You're not going to third base, right? Usually the next manager comes from either a bench coach or third base coach, because you're making more decisions at third base than you are at first base. That's just a fact. Pitching coaches, how often do they get opportunities?
Well, and what the Tigers did from August 11th on, the magical run, the gritty Tigers, all that was solely, I mean, the biggest vehicle for that was the pitching chaos that everyone loves to talk about. Is it sustainable? Probably not, but they were able to patch work and work their way through it because of Chris Fetter.
But think of the best pitching coaches in history. Were they then managers? Mike Maddox has never been a manager. Leo Mazzoni was never a manager, right? Dave Duncan was never a manager. I digress. All right, I want to dive into some college football and the college football playoff of the weekend. We'll get to that next.
Huge here for the Michigan High School Athletic Association.
Back with you on X's and Bros. Glad you're with us Monday through Friday, 6 until 9. The phone number on the Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843. You can always text our program, Sports Radio, to 21,000. Thanks for listening wherever it is you may be driving around today. WKAD 93.7 FM, The Ticket in Cadillac, in Grand Rapids, that also serves Kalamazoo and Holland, other great areas on the west side of the state. WMAX 96.1 FM, The Game. In Petoskey and Charlevoix, WMBN 104.7 FM, The Ticket, Northern Michigan. Honored to be on in Lansing now, 7:30 a.m., WVFN, The Score. And in Traverse City, 93.7 FM, The Ticket, WKAD. We are also live on X at XB Mornings. You can follow us there. We're live on Facebook and on YouTube at X's and Bros. Here's our poll question for the day. We have them for you every single day, and we invite your input. What do you think of the first round of the college football playoff? Loved it, liked it, hated it. And we will get to that conversation coming up. Here's the weird thing. Over the weekend, you see how teams did, right? I mean, obviously, we're focused on the Lions, and rightfully so. 13-2 on the year. The 13 wins, a franchise record. 7-0 on the road, the only team to be undefeated on the road so far this year. And then I see an article about how the Las Vegas Raiders blew it. And I thought, that's a weird headline. I thought they beat Jacksonville. They did. They beat them 19-14. The headline here from The Athletic is, you blew it in a big picture way. It says, Las Vegas won a hard-fought game, but lost critical ground in the race for the number 1 draft pick. The Raiders entered the game with a 35% chance to grab the top pick. They leave with a 1% chance. The team needs a quarterback. The Jaguars also had the third best odds now to grab the top pick. Okay. First and foremost, I would just love people to go up to Aiden O'Connell and say, do you feel like you blew it because you're not going to get the top pick and you need a quarterback? I would love people to go up to Amir Abdullah and say, do you feel like you let your fan base down because you won the game? How in the world do we not understand this? Because it's been going on as long as time. How do we understand? You understand that, fans and members of the media, you're not out there playing. So telling guys or thinking guys have to go about this mindset of, I'm going to lose today so the team can get a guy who might take my place next year. In other words, I want to fail at my job so somebody can take my job. I want you to think about the logic of that for a minute. It makes no sense. On top of that, the Raiders, maybe, just maybe, they go into this situation thinking that there's nobody who's a franchise quarterback coming out. Do you believe there is anybody worth losing for coming up in the NFL draft? Is there a, for sure, first overall pick in your mind? Do you think there's somebody who has leapfrogged Las Vegas who does need a quarterback? Do you think there's somebody who has leapfrogged them and said, I've got to have that guy? So let's say the Giants have the number 1 overall pick. Okay? They need a quarterback. And let's just say, for sake of argument, it's Shedeur Sanders. Do you think the Raiders are going, oh my God, we're going to get the Ryan Leaf of this draft by taking Cam Ward or whomever you consider the next quarterback? I don't get it. It's not like there's a guy out there that is tearing up the college football landscape that you're trying to position yourself for, number one. And number two, it's really hard in football. You can do this in basketball because I'll just go load management on you. I'll just say, you know what? I'm going to rest as many guys as possible. Oh, Cade, you're hurt? Oh, we're going to shut Cade down for the rest of the year. You can do that. You can do it in baseball. You know what?
All the time.
My pitchers have got too many innings. We're going to who cares with baseball, right? I mean, you don't even know. You're drafting sometimes high school guys, so you're not even sure. Football, because we see these guys play on the collegiate landscape on a regular basis, we feel like there are certain guys you got to have, okay? And we feel like collectively you could just roll over. You can't do that in football. It requires too many guys, all right, to try and screw things up, if you will, and say to themselves, this is what's best for the organization. Mark Davis just stood in front of us and said, I don't want you guys winning against Jacksonville. I want you to make sure you lose so we can obviously get the first overall pick. We need a quarterback. No offense, Aiden. We need a quarterback, and that quarterback has to be, who knows? It's not like those guys are watching college football every single Saturday. Let's get to the phone lines. The Meyer Hotline, 866-838-4843. Who's up on this Monday?
It's Dale in Muskegon. He's got some thoughts on this exact topic.
Good morning, Dale. How are you today?
Hey, good. I'm good. Good morning, Shep. As usual, big fan. Love the show. You kind of took my thunder a little bit. In football, you can. It's more of an upper management. I don't think you could tell a player in any sport to go out and don't try your hardest to win this game in any sport, let alone a pro sport. I think it's like you said a little bit in baseball. It's more, and not even the coaching who's gonna not put their best play, because they're coaching for their life, right? If you are trying to get the next big thing, you're having a bad season. A coach is not going to be like, let me lose and hope they keep me, because you're on the hot seat if it's that bad, right? So it's more upper management pulling those strings, I think. In football, I agree with you. It's way harder. And another thing, just like you said, who knows? We've seen some of the best college prospects ever just bust out in the NFL. You don't know what you're getting. They don't know what the next level is going to be. And it's a little better now, I think, because the college offenses have gone a lot more pro-style offense. So they feel like they transfer a little better than they used to.
Right.
But it's still, you see it all the time. Players don't make it. And here's another thing. Just, you can take the best quarterback who's a not miss, Peyton Manning, who he had a great career. If you put him with the worst team in the worst line, Peyton Manning's not Peyton Manning no more. He might be broken by the time you get him a line, right? So you never know. You can't tell a pro team. My point is exactly like you said. You can't tell a pro team, sit back, we're gonna play for your replacements. That's
just great. You made so many great points there, Dale. Yeah, so many great points. I appreciate it. We got to hit our time now. No, you're 100% right. It's so well said. Thanks for the intelligent phone call. Really appreciate it. Yeah, Peyton Manning. Look, he was so good at Tennessee. He was so dominant at Tennessee. He goes to Indianapolis. His team finishes 3-13. He leads the league in interceptions with 28. Now the next year he goes 13-3. And he throws 26 touchdowns and 15 picks. Point is, it's a hard transition. So that's number one. Number two, what are you going to do? You're going to take 16 guys, put them on IL, and bring the full 16-member practice squad team up and have them play in a game? It cannot be done. It bothers me, and I don't know why I let it bother me, but it bothers the hell out of me that you get a headline like that, you know what, you as a team just blew it. The whole point of sports is to compete, man. It's
just win, baby.
Down. You're supposed to go out there and you're supposed to give it everything you got. If you don't, people will write, you know what, this guy's getting paid millions of dollars and he's not even trying. When you do, you know what, this is ridiculous. Why would you go out and win when you're trying to get the first overall pick? I hate to tell you, players don't care about the number one overall pick. They care about winning. We're back with more after this.
Shop Meyer for thousands of last
45 after the hour here on X's and Bros. 818, we've got Heroes and Heels. We do that every Monday for you. So we have certain staples in our show. We have Heroes and Heels. We have, of course, your daily wagers. We have your poll questions. And on Fridays, of course, we have the Friday six-pack brought to you by Founders Today, Heroes and Heels. Every Monday, 818, get your hero, get your heel ready for us. College football playoff. The first round is in the books. None of those games were entertaining. None of them. No, it's true, right? It's not surprising to me that people immediately felt like a change has to be made. This is what happens all the time. When a new experiment takes place, the change has to be immediate. And what's always surprised me is that it's people who do this for a living. Like, for example, Lane Kiffin, who feels like his team got jobbed, Ole Miss, who had a nice season. They did. They had a really nice season. But as soon as Notre Dame blows out Indiana 27-17, and that game was not as close as the final score would indicate, as soon as Penn State steamrolled SMU 38-10, again, not even as close as you thought, or at least as the record or the final score would indicate, Kiffin posted this on X. Really exciting competitive game at CFB playoff. Great job. He said, way to keep us on the edge of our seats, committee. This is riveting, right after the Penn State SMU game. Now, this is a guy who is actively, and rightfully so, that's what good coaches do. They politic might be a little bit of a strong word, but they support their team, right? They go out there and they tell you, look, this is why we deserve to be here. Apparently they need to go, all over their resume and make sure that all those things are defined for people who may have lost track, because there's a lot of football games going on in college football throughout the season. So can you keep up with everybody? Maybe not. Maybe Lane Kiffin feels like he deserved to be in this playoff, even though he was the third team out, Alabama, Miami, then Ole Miss. Maybe, just maybe, he forgot that he lost to Kentucky at home 20-17 in the conference opener. Maybe, just maybe, he forgot that his team was not all that great against LSU, for example, in overtime. Maybe he forgot that his team went 0-3 against ranked opponents this season, including a loss to Florida 24-17. Maybe he forgot that. While he was pumping his team's tires, while he was taking jabs at the College Football Playoff Committee, maybe he just forgot, I should have gone over our 2024 resume before spouting off. You knew this was going to happen. This is not a surprise. I told you this, and I've said it for years. Expanding the playoff format does not solve the controversy. People felt like, 12 teams, we're fine. This this 12-team format now is going to solve all the issues we've had in college football, and it could not be further from the truth. Trent and I told you a few weeks ago, and I hate to say it this way, but it's true. In case you missed any of our show, this is true. We said, how many teams do you think can win the national championship? And the bottom line is there's about 4. That's it. It's 4. Did you really think SMU had a chance?
No.
Did you really think a team like Tennessee and their flaws had a chance? No. Did you really think Indiana was going to threaten to win a national championship? No.
You may have wanted that to happen, but
you may have been. Look, it's a feel-good story.
Right.
And I'm not saying Indiana shouldn't have been there. Okay, it's been a feel-good story. The part of the issue is Indiana played some of the worst teams in the Big Ten this year, beat them, and everybody felt like, you know what, this is a great story. That's a team that's never won 11 games in a row. It's a team that has never had this type of success. It's the losingest football program in the history of Division I, and yet now they have reached the college football playoff for the first time since they indoctrined a 12-team football playoff. Good for them. They should feel really good about it. They should. Their coach should be named National Coach of the Year. It's a hell of a job to turn
Successful
that around,
season
okay?
for Indiana.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot to be proud of. There's no doubt. But from a national championship perspective, don't tell me that you felt like they had an opportunity. They did. We told you last week how many teams? We said 4. We said Texas. We said Ohio State. We said Georgia. And we said Notre Dame. Those were the 4 teams that we felt like could win. I'm rooting for a team like Boise State. And I have a hard time rooting for a team like Ohio State, but they are really good. And they have got a deep, talented roster. I can promise you that. You know that. Don't just look at the Michigan game. It's a team that is really good. Now, what has happened to them, I do not know. Why they have become the punk on the block is beyond me. Did you see what happened with, everyone? It's so – Michigan had – when people ripped on Michigan about the tunnel, oh, my God, we got to do something about the tunnel. It's like we've got to dig new tunnels. We're in the Civil War. We got to dig new tunnels because Michigan and Michigan State got in a fight in the tunnel, or Michigan and Ohio State got a fight in the tunnel. Oh, my God. Oh, the horror. I can't believe what's going on here. This is terrible for college football. You pompous. It's unbelievable. Ohio State stands on the sideline as the opposition comes out. They tried to bow up against Michigan, who literally was laughing at them. It's like, shut up, dude. We're 3-0 against you. Sit down.
Yeah.
Who are you trying to intimidate?
You don't scare any of us.
Same thing to Tennessee on Saturday night. The same damn thing. And who's in the middle of it squawking? A guy who, I would say months ago, I was sitting here touting Jack Sawyer, the defensive end for Ohio State. And I said, Detroit's going to pick 29th or 30th. They could use some depth along the defensive line. I'd love to see him go after a Jack Sawyer. I hope they scratch him off so damn fast. He is the biggest punk you've ever seen in college football for his chirping. The crap that he says.
He's a front runner.
What he did against Michigan was an absolute farce. He wasn't even a factor in the game, and he's spouting off at Mason Graham. It really makes you want to go, you know what? I can't wait till you get steamrolled. But you know that they're really good, right? So I was really torn. I don't know about you. I was really torn the other night because I'm the guy who has been saying for decades, I want to see a team from the SEC come up and play a team from the Big Ten in the middle of November or late November or December. And I used to say, I'm never going to get that because you're knee deep into conference play, so it's probably not going to happen. The one thing I do like about this college football playoff, and I would hope it would be more home games. I know they've got to satisfy certain bowl games, so it's now the Rose Bowl and the Cotton Bowl and all that. I get all that. But I love the fact that it's at somebody else's barn. I loved that Tennessee had to come to Ohio State. I loved that SMU had to go to Penn State. Am I sold on Penn State? Absolutely not. A lot of that has to do with their coach. But I love the fact that you took a team from a warm weather area, even though it can get cold in Dallas, but from a warm weather area, headed to Penn State and State College on a chilly Saturday where the sun was shining. Can you imagine if it was what you usually like in late December? And I loved that Tennessee had to leave the comfy confines of a warm area near there to go up to Columbus and play Ohio State in the cold on a Saturday night. I thought it was riveting. I was rooting for, I was rooting for the Big Ten because we've seen in the past, we've seen plenty of Big Ten teams go to warm weather spots in Florida and California and Texas and under a roof where the SEC can showcase some of its strengths. Well, this gives the Big Ten a chance to show some of its strengths and why some of their kids. Isn't this what football, honestly, be honest with yourself, isn't this what football is supposed to be? I mean, when you grew up watching, not Trent as much, but I mean, Trent's father, we grow up, what did we see? We watched Minnesota outdoors. The Purple People Eaters play teams like the Lions outdoors. We saw the Lions play at Tiger Stadium, right? We see Pittsburgh play outdoors. Baltimore play outdoors.
Lambeau.
Lambeau. The Ice Bowl. This is beautiful stuff. This is the way football is supposed to be played. It's a gladiator sport, and we have made it so comfortable for fans. I'm not saying that I want to sit in -degree temperature either watching a football game, but we've made it so comfortable for fans that now you feel like if you're not playing indoors, you're not doing justice to the teams that are playing. And I think it's a joke. You have to learn to adapt. You have to be able to play in all kinds of different weather. And I thought it was beautiful watching Tennessee go to Ohio State. But I can't understand when it turned for the Buckeyes where they became just – Metallica's got a really good song called It Ain't My Blank, okay, and it rhymes with itch. When did Ohio State become that type of program? Maybe it's because Ryan Day has no control of his program. I don't know.
I think that's a big part of it, to be honest.
I do too, because leadership, trickle down effect. But it sure seems like that's who they've become, doesn't it?
Yep.
I mean, trying to do that to Tennessee, and then you've got all kinds of problems, and now what do you have? Oh, my gosh. There's got to be some type of protocol. And here's the protocol. Go out there, warm up on the field, and don't try to stand there and act like you're going to intimidate everybody coming onto your field. All right? Knock it off. You're joke.
Instigating. You're the instigator if you do.
It sure seems like it, doesn't it?
Yep. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So who is the best offensive team you saw play in the college football playoff this past weekend? For me, it was Texas. Ohio State. So for you, it was Texas?
Yeah, I could hear the Ohio State argument, though.
Yeah, so Will Howard, 24 of 29, 311 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He hit Jeremiah Smith 6 times, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ohio State picked up 473 total yards compared to Tennessee's 276, I think it was. And they were 6 for 16 on third downs, which has nothing to do with offense. But I think offensively, yeah, I would go with Ohio State. You picked Texas. I get that. Yeah, I thought Texas looked really impressive too. Don't get me wrong. How about defensively? Who was the best defensive team you saw?
That's a better question. Maybe I don't know. What's your answer to that?
For me, it was Penn State. Now,
how much of that though do you think? Like,
I know. Here it comes.
With SMU, yeah. And we'll get to the daily wager here in a little bit.
How much was it SMU's offense compared to Penn State's defense? I don't know the answer to that. All right, but I watched that entire game, and when you got defensive ends jumping up, knocking the ball up in the air, and then picking it off, there's something to be said for that. Sure.
Well, and you can't penalize Penn State just because.
But Penn State, I thought they put a crap load of pressure on the quarterback. They had great timing of when they're not getting to the pressure, they're jumping up in the ball batting. They had great coverage downfield. I thought overall Penn State's defense was really impressive. Yeah, sure. SMU contributed to it. But, I guess I could ask you the same thing if you're going to take a certain offense. How much is the opposing team's defense factor in it all? Did Clemson's defense allow Texas to move the ball as much as you thought they would? I mean, do you ask that about the team that is really good offensively? So I have to take that into consideration.
I think another great defensive performance was Notre Dame because, like you said, that game was not nearly as close as the final score indicated.
Yeah, that would be the other guess, I would think, for them to do what they did. And to your point, and it's probably a better answer, to your point, Indiana, whether you believe in them or not, again, we've already gone over their schedule or kind of given you a broad brush of their schedule. Whether you believe it or not, they still put up big numbers this year. They didn't against Michigan, which is a good defense, but they still won the game. Notre Dame's defense taking them completely out of rhythm from the very get-go. I mean, it was 3 and out for Indiana right away. A lot of pressure. Rourke didn't look very comfortable. Indiana, I read an article that suggested, and I think this was from the Indianapolis Star, Indiana looked like they were somebody else, trying to be somebody else than who they really were. And perhaps Notre Dame's defense forced them into that line of thinking. Yeah.
63 rushing yards for Indiana.
That's crazy.
63.
Yeah. I thought Notre Dame was really good. I'm not completely sold on their offense. But again, I was at a party Friday night and I was talking with some friends and they said, this should be a good game. I said, I think Notre Dame's going to blow them out. And I think a lot of it has to do with their defense. And I said, I hope I'm wrong because I'd like to see Indiana hang with them. I'm rooting for the Big Ten, want to justify the ranking, justify the spot. And I said, because if they don't get there, if they and SMU gets steamboated. All right. If they are not going to be able to hang with these teams, you're going to hear from Alabama. You're going to hear from Miami. You're going to hear from Ole Miss. And you're going to hear from fans and writers and commentators everywhere saying, blow it up. It's got to be completely different. And they will try and raise the altar of the almighty SEC. That's what they're going to do.
And maybe rightfully so. We got a text from John and Holt who says there were too many blowouts in the college football playoff. They need to see the teams better. Boise State and Arizona State should not have been that high. And maybe he's got a beef there because for the first round matchup.
Here's what you need to do then. You need to make sure, winning your conference should not matter. They have taken it to the point. This is all up to us, right?
No, you're right. Yeah.
It's a good discussion. It really is. I don't think we can necessarily what's right or wrong. But if you're going to do that, what is the point of having a conference championship game?
That is a great point.
Tell me the point of it, because we all know what the point is overall. It's to make more money, right?
Sure.
You want to cherish a conference title, all right? If you want to cherish a conference title, tell me how it's beneficial if it's not going to get you one of those spots and you're ranked highly going in, because that spot, obviously, Clemson got in because it won the ACC championship game, but they weren't ranked very highly, right? At 10-3. I do believe, they deserve to get there. You win the ACC championship. There's something to be said for that, right? Boise winning a conference championship. And I think who says that Boise State and Arizona State shouldn't be there? Or are you just saying they shouldn't get a bye? They should have to play in the first round. And if you think they should play in the first round, fair enough. Tell me the team that deserved the bye that didn't win their conference championship. So do you think Ohio State deserved it when they didn't even play in their championship game?
Right. Good point. Because it goes back to the whole, you can get penalized for playing in the conference championship game. A couple of years ago, was it last year where Georgia was number one all year and they lose to Bama in the SEC championship? Then they missed the playoff altogether. Right. I mean, there's no perfect science here, but I do think John has a point. He thinks they're seated too high, or he wanted to see him play in the first round. Because what you might have seen there is you might have seen more competitive football in the first round. Well, if you had Indiana versus Boise State or something like that, you know what I mean?
Right. So he's thinking Notre Dame deserved a bye. I'm not putting.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for John.
Okay?
Yeah,
but Notre Dame deserves a bye when they don't even play in a conference, right? And they're not playing in a conference championship game, and they played one fewer game. I don't think Notre Dame mind hosting. Okay, Boise State won the conference. You don't have respect for the conference. You don't have respect for the Mountain West, even though this is a team that hung right there with Oregon. They went to Oregon and lost by a field goal, 37-34. You don't think they played anybody else after that? They really didn't. Outside of UNLV as a team that was actually ranked, they didn't really play anybody. Indiana didn't necessarily do that either. If you're going to go by strength of schedule, if that truly matters to you, then you need to take the conference championship out of it. And how are you going to get a better balanced schedule when it comes to big conferences? It's tough to do, right? The conference championship has to mean something. All right, we got to hit a timeout. We've got the daily wager, the results from our poll question on Friday, 8:18. We've got our hero and heels. We can continue this conversation as well because it's a good one on X's and Bros.
Hey, Michigan, let's
Get some facts and come back and see me. Get some facts and come back and see me. Don't throw out salaries or other things. Get some facts and come back and see me. You can't handle the truth.
I told our players, you need to be more like a dog. We don't need a bunch of cats in here looking in the mirror. Do I look good? I got my extra bands on. I got my other shoes on. Be a dog. We don't need no meows. We don't need no cats. We need more dogs.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
We weren't good. There's no sense asking me things about the game. I'm telling you, we laid an egg, so I'm not going to break it down for you. We sucked. We sucked. We laid an egg. That's all I have to say, guys. I'm sorry. I'm not going to break it down for you. Nothing went well for us. It's on us. We have to figure it out, and we.
It's showtime. Hey, final hour of the program. Glad you're with us on this Monday morning. I'm Nat Shepard. The phone number on the Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843. You can text the program Sports Radio to 21,000. Happy holidays to you. Merry Christmas to you as well. We're back with you tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock here throughout the great state of Michigan. And our poll question for this Monday is, what did you think of the first round of the college football playoff? Loved it, liked it, or hated it? You can vote as often as you like at XB Mornings on Twitter. We'll give you the results in the 8 o'clock hour tomorrow. We do have the results from Friday's poll question coming up here, and we've got the daily wager as well. In case you missed it, and I don't think you did, but just a reminder that the Lions are 13-2 now. They boast the season sweep of the Bears 34-17. And as Adam Schefter points out, all 4 NFC division titles will be on the line week 17. He tweeted this: the Eagles can clinch the East with a win. They play the Cowboys or the Giants?
Cowboys
at home. The Lions with a win and a Vikings loss can clinch the NFC North. Lions are at San Francisco. Minnesota has Green Bay at home. The Falcons can clinch with a win and a Buccaneers loss. That loss by Tampa to Dallas last night was massive. All right. And the Rams can clinch with a win and a Seahawks loss, or just a win if they clinch the strength of victory over the rest of the division. The Rams, and you picked them to win the division, have been really good as of late. Now, it wasn't pretty yesterday in the win in New York, but it was still a win. And Matthew Stafford and company are on the verge of making the playoffs. And I'm telling you right now, if he's playing he's a division winner, so Minnesota would have to play there. That
would be a great matchup.
Dude, that's not an enticing matchup if you're Minnesota. If you're Minnesota, look, you're 13-2. You should feel confident wherever you go. It's indoors for them. It'd be indoors for us because both teams play under a roof. But the way the Rams have been able to move the football, I mean, their offenses look really, really sharp. All right, let's get to the fact that Michigan won too in basketball, 89-58. Let's get to the final results of yesterday's poll question, or Friday's poll question. We asked you this: do you expect the Lions to bounce back against Chicago? We wanted to gauge the confidence level of Lions fans because losses sit with you for a while, don't they? I mean, wins do too. You feel good all week long. You're talking to your buddies about how great that Lions. If you want a conversation starter, you don't know somebody at a party, you're in line, you see a Lions hat, a Lions sweatshirt, something like that. You're at the gym, you don't know somebody. Hey, good win for the Lions yesterday, wasn't it? Oh, man, I'm telling you. Boom, instant conversation. Suddenly you've got a friend. Next time you see him at the gym, hey, what's going on? Yeah, big game this weekend, right? You bet. Have a good one. Enjoy it. That's what it is, right? So it's a conversation starter for sure when you win. When you lose, it's just as much. Oh, boy, what a bummer, huh? Boy, that Buffalo team's really good, but I really thought I'm a little concerned about Detroit.
You got to get some stuff off your chest.
Yeah, I wanted to get a gauge on the passion and the belief Lions fans had out there. Thus, the question. Like, I think most people are going to be like Trent Sweater today, and it's going to be, I totally believe in the Lions. Jolly, jolly, jolly. What were the final results from the poll question on Friday? Do you expect the Lions to bounce back against Chicago?
Shep, you say it all the time. We have a smart audience. 92% of you said yes, you expect the bounce back win, and that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
Only 8% lost faith.
That is the largest margin of victory of any question we've asked. Is that right?
Gotta be.
Yeah, it has to be. All right, let's get to the Daily Wager. And the Daily Wager is brought to you by our friends at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. They sponsor this hour of X's and Bros. What did you have for us Friday? And what's on tap? Speaking of Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort and the Sportsbook Ascend, plenty of on-tap beers there. Good cold beer. What's on tap for us tonight?
Yeah, last Friday I took SMU +9. I branded it as the people's choice. It was maybe the people's choice, but it was not a winner. That's what it was not. SMU got stomped. But tonight, Shep, we'll go to Monday Night Football. Saints, Packers. Jamal Williams, you might remember him, former Lion. To score a touchdown is +360. That means if you bet $5, your payout is $23. He's their bell cow. I understand they're a bad team. I don't want to touch that 14.5-point spread, so I wanted to find something fun. I'll take Jamal Williams to score a touchdown against his other former team, the Green Bay Packers. You don't love it, do you?
No, I don't love that.
It's all about the value today, Shep.
Yeah. No, I like that you go. Is he their bell cow? I thought Josh Jacobs was.
Well, Josh Jacobs, the Packer. I'm talking Jamal Williams, the Saints running back.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I got you. So you're thinking, Green Bay's going to surrender that. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I think they'll get in the end zone twice or 3 times, and he'll be one of them. How's that?
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. New Orleans is it. All right. There's
Packers will win this game, though, I think.
Oh yeah. I don't think there's any question.
Do you think they'll cover the 14.5-point spread? It's a big number.
That is a huge number. I am going to fall into the same trap that I constantly criticize people for. All right.
What's that?
An indoor New Orleans team playing against an outdoor Packers team at Lambeau at night. I think it's going to be really hard. And that's a lot of points to give up. I don't think Green Bay covers. I think Green Bay will win, but I don't think they cover.
When you're dealing with this big of a line, it's tough because Green Bay could win by 2 touchdowns, win comfortably, and still that half point, that little hook there at the end, the Saints could cover the spread.
Yeah.
So interesting line here. I'm staying away from it. I'll go the prop bet route today.
Yeah, that's smart on you. I wouldn't feel comfortable with that at all. I would not feel comfortable with that at all with New Orleans. That's a team. It's kind of a strange team to try and figure out. Remember when they beat Dallas? Was it Dallas in week 2? And they started 2-0.
Oh, they started 3-0, I think, right?
I thought they lost to Philly in week 3. I could be wrong.
Either way, I remember they were a story early on.
I know they started really strong. And one of the cool topics, and we may have fallen into the trap too, was which team that started 2-0 has been off the most surprising start. New Orleans has got legs, and New Orleans give me a break.
It was Dallas, by the way, Shep. They beat them 44-19 in week 2. You're exactly right.
Did they start 3-0?
They didn't. They lost to Philly the next week.
Yeah, that's right.
You nailed it.
So that's a situation right there where we jumped way ahead, right? More so than we probably should have. We do have some texts for heroes and heels. That excites me. I'm going to bring you those when we come back. We've got our hero and heel as well. Plenty more to get to. Lions discussion is always there for you. You don't have to have us talking about it. College football playoff discussion is wide open as well. The Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843. This hour of X's and Bros proudly brought to you by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort on a Monday morning throughout the great state of Michigan.
Shop Meyer for thousands of last-minute
I always enjoy Mondays. I mean it. I know a lot of people go back to work on Monday and they think, oh my God, here we go. Monday's a bad day. The old Bengals song. It's just another manic Monday. But for me, I mean, I do enjoy it. And I enjoy it because I love the hero and heel segment at 8:18 that we do every Monday morning. And we bring this to you, giving us and you the best of the weekend. Could be a player, could be an organization, could be a league, could be a commissioner, could be something in general. It doesn't always have to be sports related either. And then we give you the worst as well. So here's my hero from the weekend. And it was Trent's hero from last week. And it is Tony Annese in Ferris State football, the number 2 Bulldogs blowing out Valdosta State that was ranked number 1, 49-14 Saturday to claim their 3rd Division II championship in the last 4 years. Ferris finishes the year with 14 consecutive wins, including all playoff games, by an average of 35 points per game. In other words, it was not even close. Quarterback Trinidad Chambliss led an offense that collected 468 yards against Valdosta State. He threw for 153 yards, rushed for another 78. He accounted for 51 touchdowns on the year, 26 passing, 25 rushing. Ferris State is the 6th school to win at least 3 Division II national championships. In fact, the state of Michigan has 2 of those 6. Grand Valley State has 4. Ferris State now has 3. Tony Annese is a hell of a football coach. Ferris State has put themselves together a hell of a football program, and they deserve my hero of the weekend. Trent,
Shep, you probably would have got a chuckle out of this. I had 4 TVs set up on Saturday, and one of the games we were keeping an eye on was Ferris State. So
well, you are big money. I mean, you got 4 TVs in your house. I mean, come on.
Half of them, the picture isn't coming in great, but, it is what it is.
They all require rabbit ears.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
My hero for the weekend, the Washington Commanders, more specifically Jaden Daniels. 5 touchdowns, 4 of which went to a couple of guys who had 0 on the season coming into the game, getting everyone involved. So the game-winning drive in a divisional game to keep the NFC East interesting, keeps their hopes to win that division interesting, and, of course, helps out the Lions by beating Philly. That game-winning touchdown pass to Shep, I don't know if you saw it. It was a tight window. It was on the money. Jaden Daniels, your rightful rookie of the year, although you and I give credit to Brock Bowers and what he's doing in Vegas. But Jaden Daniels, that's a hell of a win against a really good team, albeit down Jalen Hurts.
Around 3 defenders. I mean, that's how tight of a porthole that was for
Nails.
Daniels. You could have easily, though, had they not done that at the end, used them as a heel. Because, A, it was at home. B, they're playing for their playoff lives. C, selfishly, they would be hurting the Lions if they lost. But remember, they turned it over 5 times in that game, Trent. They overcame 5 turnovers. That, to me, is absolutely crazy. Philadelphia, you had Brian Robinson fumbled twice.
Daniels threw 2 picks.
Dylan Brown fumbled once, so there's 3 on the ground, and then Daniels had 2 picks. There's 5 turnovers, and somehow Washington was able to overcome that. They get their 10th win of the year. I was watching a lot of that broadcast, and then of course, and this is, I'm not complaining about it. This is exactly what should happen. Good producers will do this. They bring up the coaches of the year. They did it during the Minnesota game. They did it during the Washington game. And I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure Dan Quinn should be up for coach of the year. There was no Andy Reid included, even though you and I talked last week, and I've said this for the last 3 weeks, Andy Reid deserves to be in the conversation, I believe.
They're 14-1.
They're 14-1, and they've done it for the most part. Like we talk about Detroit bringing in guys off the street. I get it. They've been fantastic. I mean, Kareem Hunt, look at how important he was yesterday. He got somebody 15 fantasy points. It wasn't me because he was on my bench. And I played Isaiah Pacheco, for crying out loud, who didn't do squat. And I lost by 5 points like an idiot.
Yikes.
If I play Kareem Hunt, I win. And I'm playing in a championship game. But I'm not angry about it. Here's the heel. My here is Brandon Joseph, the second-year safety waived by the Lions Saturday after being pulled over at 1:47 in the morning in Dearborn Heights for speeding, then arrested on suspicion of operating or driving under the influence. You're on a team at the end of a 12-2 season, because they hadn't played Chicago and beaten Chicago. Chance to be part of a division winner. Chance to be part of a conference champion. Chance to be part of a Super Bowl champion. And you act the fool? The 23-year-old was undrafted. He's getting the chance to experience something you always dreamed of. Play a little bit, sometimes in the practice squad, a chance to play a little bit, a chance to contribute, a chance to tell all your buddies. I mean, you want to bow up, you want to stick your chest out, you want to tell everybody you're a big deal. Here's what you do. You say, you know what? Yeah, I'm a member of the Lions. We're 13-2. Instead, now what's he saying? Yeah, I'm unemployed. I used to be part of the Lions, but I screwed up because I'm an idiot, right? I was drinking. I was driving. I'm immature. Immature and ignorance are a dangerous combination. Apparently, that's not enough. Living the football life is not enough for Brandon Joseph. He's my heel of the weekend.
That's a good one. Big special teamer for the Lions, too, so they'll fill that role somewhere else. But my heel, Dabo Swinney. I mentioned this earlier this season after Clemson got boat raced by Georgia 34-3 early on. The only programs that didn't welcome a transfer last offseason, Shep: Army, Navy, Air Force, and Clemson. You have got to get with the times, especially in this day and age with NIL and whatnot. You have to get – you don't have to like it, but you have to re-up your roster a little bit. Use those resources that are readily available for you. You are Clemson. You're not going to hang with Georgia. You're not going to hang with Texas like we saw on Saturday unless you're able to bolster up that roster a little bit with transfers, just like literally every other program does except for our military. So that's my heel for the weekend. I don't know. Would you call Clemson a successful season this year? I don't know. I mean, you made the playoff, but you got boat raced in it. Are you happy with that? Are you satisfied? If I'm a Clemson fan, I wouldn't be. That's my point.
Yeah, no, I get it. I don't think – look,
not one transfer.
Hold on. You and I complain a lot about the portal, all right? We do.
You don't have to like it.
It's the times. They're gonna change with the times. They're gonna be forced to, okay? Because this is all gonna change drastically. I would say within 4 or 5 years, okay, it's gonna change drastically. This portal stuff drove guys like Nick Saban out. Why are we criticizing a guy who wants to keep the guys he recruited and does a nice job of actually holding on to them instead of constantly dipping into something?
I'm criticizing it because you
consider it toxic, for crying out loud.
I understand.
Left and right, and we criticize it as free agency. We call it the wild, wild west. And then when a guy who actually says, you know what, I'm going to stay true to the guys who I recruited, and I'm going to make sure we coach them up, and you're going to sit there and criticize him. I don't know.
I listen, I understand. That's why I say you don't have to like it, but it's the fact of the matter, and I'm criticizing him for it because it's hurting his program. It's holding you back from accomplishing the things you want to accomplish. Sure, you won the ACC. That's great. Miami fell on their face. You won the ACC. You aren't able to compete for a national title if you don't use the portal at least a little bit. And that's all I'm saying. You don't have to like it. And if you're like Nick Saban and you hate it that much, then get out. Get out of football. You've won 2 natties. Good for you.
Well, why should he let what we consider to be a broken system? Why should we if I'm him, I'm not going to let a broken system force me out of something that I love. I think that mandate is, if you don't like it, get out. No. How about this? If you don't like it, then get better players when you recruit them. I get that. But why should you just give up on something you love to do and you've been really good at doing because the NCAA doesn't know how to handle the portal system? I wouldn't say that. But it's interesting. We think the portal automatically fixes things.
Doesn't fix things, but it helps you.
I've got some examples that might contradict that. We'll get to that when we come back. It's a good one.
Huge here for my good friend Josh Garvey. Now,
Okay, back with you on X's and Bros. Wrapping things up on a Monday morning. It's been a fast-moving show. We appreciate the text. We got some phone calls we want to get to. Let me just wrap something up with Trent. We were talking about Dabo Swinney not going into the portal. He hasn't lost many. He's going to lose 3, I think, this year as of right now. So he doesn't lose many. I wondered why we criticize a guy who doesn't go into the portal when we criticize the portal and the system the NCAA implements. And Trent brought up a really good point. Look, I mean, but this is the life, right? You have to adjust, right? What's the old line from Moneyball? Adapt or die. The only thing I would mention is just because you go into the portal doesn't mean you're better. Florida State had 10 top 200 transfers, and they finished what, 2-10 this year. Texas A&M had 8 top 200 transfers from the portal. They finished 8-4. Colorado, 8 top 200 transfers. They had fewer wins than Clemson. Washington had 7 top 200 transfers. They finished 500. Florida had 6 top 200 transfers. They finished with fewer wins than Clemson. Just because you go there doesn't mean you're automatically going to get better. Now, I don't disagree with Trent. I do believe that's the way football is today. Now, is it screwed up? Absolutely, because of the teams that are currently playing. Look, when Michigan, everybody said, how can you not get a quarterback in the transfer portal? Do you remember that? When everybody said? The reason is because the system is set up, it's so screwed up, you couldn't get one because of how far they went last year in the playoffs. Personally, I think you should have been able to recognize, read the tea leaves a little bit, see that J.J. McCarthy was going to leave, know that Jim Harbaugh was continuing to talk to NFL teams. That's hindsight. That's me saying you should have when you never know, right? I think you had a pretty good idea of it. You should have been prepared for it. It really was the perfect storm. You couldn't get a transfer quarterback from the portal because of how long Michigan lasted in the game during the season, and you were unsure about your quarterback and your head coach. Neither had made their intentions known, wink, wink, until it was probably too late. But when we say Dabo Swinney, and I'm not a huge fan of his, so don't take this out of context. But when we say he's got to go to the portal, that's the way college football is today. I kind of give him some credit. There were at the beginning of the year when they got boat raced by Georgia. Remember how many people came out? You got too many white guys out there. I mean, there were actually people who said that. And then they end up in the 12-team college football playoff. And they do it in a way that is unconventional in today's college football, but I kind of appreciate it. I kind of respect it to a certain extent. He isn't taking the easy way out and going into the portal. Clemson fans are probably pissed off about it. But just because he doesn't do it doesn't mean it automatically is going to create success if you do happen to tip your hand and go into the portal. All right, let's get to we got a phone call, right, on the wire hotline, 866-838-4843. And then we've got some texts of heroes and heels as well, which excites me a great deal on a Monday morning. Who's up?
Yeah, first up, we got Larry and Saginaw with some heroes and heels.
Larry, how are you today? Thanks for listening.
Good, Shep. Yes. Hey, got to listen to you online because they took you off our station up here, and I hope you can come back on 100.9.
I would love that very much. It's a really important market for us here in the state of Michigan, but I can't thank you enough for listening online at MichiganSportsNetwork.com. What's on your mind today, buddy?
Well, a couple things on the heroes and the heels. Mm-hmm. I think Ben Johnson must be listening to Andy Reid's commercials because he's my hero for doing the Stumble-Rooski and making it work.
Well said. Is that the State Farm commercial or is that a food commercial? I forget which one that is. That's a good one.
No, that's State Farm. The State Farm with him and.
Oh, I wish I'd have thought of that. Well done, Larry. Well played. Well played. Okay,
now on my heel, did you happen to see the national anthem before the Ohio State game?
I did not. I'm sorry. No, enlighten me.
Well, you should Google it because they unraveled a American flag of all the states. Okay, while they're doing the national anthem, Michigan is cut out of it. The state of Michigan.
No kidding. Wow.
No kidding. Google it.
Let me ask you a question, though.
They are my heel.
All right. Before I let you go, I want to ask you this. Is there a part of you, maybe a little part of you, that really respects how much they hate Michigan to go to those lengths? Like, it's real when they do that.
That shows how much we own them. Ohio State. They just proved how much we own them.
Constantly in their head, at least.
Delete us.
I think they're going to do that no matter what, right? Whether they've won 4 in a row or lost 4 in a row in Michigan, they're going to put a red X through every M on their campus, and they're probably going to do that. There's a part of me, I think it's borderline petty, but there's a part of me that really respects the hatred they truly have for Michigan football, because I don't see it in any other sport.
No, but if you get a chance, just Google that and you'll see it.
I will do that.
I think it's horrible.
Yeah, thanks for the education.
Okay.
I appreciate it. When it comes to the American flag, I don't think you should be messing with that. I think it's a little ridiculous.
No, exactly.
But it's a good call. I appreciate it. Thanks, Larry. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to you and your family. Let's get to the text line, Sports Radio to 21,000. I know we've got some folks who've texted in. I want to get to those as well. Go ahead, Trent.
Hero forever, Ricky Henderson. Great baseball players. Added an S to every word. Heel, not as a person, but as a head coach, Derek Lalone.
Well, you lose twice to the Habs.
It's bad.
And one was a close game, and then one you got blown out. I'm sorry.
So bad.
I don't root for people to lose jobs ever, okay? I just don't. I think jobs like that are so damn hard to get. There's just, obviously, there's only 30 jobs like that in the world, in the National Hockey League. Detroit is it was such an embarrassing weekend. They are lifeless. That's how I look at them. I'm like, man, there's just not much energy for them at all. I just don't see much of a care at all. There are certain teams like Chicago's not very good. San Jose's not very good. Columbus isn't very good. Buffalo's not very good. Buffalo beat Detroit once earlier this year. I don't think you can necessarily play that game in an 82-game schedule. But when you come out and you play a home-and-home like that and get dusted the way they did against Montreal, there has to be a change made. I'm sorry. I'm not calling for a firing. I'm saying something has to be done, and it's got to be done quickly. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to trade a ton of players. Okay? Teams just don't look at Detroit's roster and go, I can't wait to get a guy like that. I want a guy like that. You're not going to do that. So what do you have to do? Change has to come in a different form. So that's a really good one. As far as the hero is concerned, I'm sorry. The hero was what?
Ricky Henderson.
Ricky Henderson. Thank you. I said this earlier. He was as soon as he gets on base, and he had a really good on-base percentage. I told you about the walks earlier in the show. Second base is stolen. Oftentimes, third base is stolen. We're talking about more than 500 more than anybody else. Like, we think today, Ellie De La Cruz, what an exciting base steal. No, not really. No. I mean, if you saw the base stealers back in the day, I don't care if it sounds like old guy. If you saw guys like Ricky Henderson and Willie Wilson and Willie McGee and way back before my time, even Lou Brock, just watch some highlights of him, right? Ron LaFleur, Tim Raines, those guys, those are great base stealers, man. Great base stealers, and they're doing it against really good defensive catchers. Jim Sundberg was a hell of a defensive catcher. He's not a Hall of Famer. He's a hell of a defensive catcher. Okay, Lance Parrish, hell of a defensive catcher. Ricky Anderson's got more than 500 more stolen bases than the great Lou Brock. Think about that for a minute. It's amazing to me. The amount of talent back then was just so immense of the great players, such great players. And Ricky Henderson was in that conversation for power, speed. He'd never win a Gold Glove, right? He didn't have a super strong arm, but power, speed, his strike box in today's TV, right, was like this big. It was maybe 8 inches. It was really tough because of how he bent over when he was batting. So the strike zone was really, really small, which he used to his advantage. But he hit almost 300 homers, had over 3,000 hits, stole over 1,400 bags, walked. I mean, it's just amazing the stuff that he did from an offensive perspective. You can't really beat it. I'm glad the person texted hero as Ricky Henderson. When you're scoring 2,300 runs and you're walking 2,200 times and you're leading off the game with 81 homers that no one else will ever reach. I'm not saying he's the greatest hitter of all time. All right. That's probably Ted Williams, at least in my mind, when you look at the accomplishments. But he's in the conversation for among the most gifted offensive player to ever have played the game. And a lot of that is stolen bases, sure.
The man of steel.
But he used it to his advantage. The best stories, though, are those coming out about Ricky Henderson talking to himself and referring to himself. And some of the great stories. Like somebody had a story where they were on deck, Ricky Henderson strikes out, and he's heard walking back, "That's okay, Ricky, you're still the greatest." And he's talking to himself, right? The most famous story is him and John Olerud. And he's playing with John Olerud, and Olerud's wearing a helmet at first base. And he said, I played with a guy in Toronto who wore a helmet at first base. And John Olerud looked at him and says, "Yeah, Ricky, that was me. No kidding." So that's good. Ricky Henderson kind of forgot some of that stuff. More text. Go ahead.
Yeah, this one, I'm going to loop these two together because they have the same heel. Someone says Jahmyr Gibbs is the hero for taking the extra workload and succeeding. Okay, someone also gives
ball 20 of the first 33 plays run.
Amazing.
By the Lions. I mean, I give Tim Twentyman all the credit, all right? The senior writer for DetroitLions.com joined us last Friday. If you missed any of it, check it out on our podcast. You can get our podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify. Trent puts it out there on social media at XB Mornings. And he said, look, this is a guy who was used to it. He did it a year ago when David Montgomery went down. He can handle the load. Jahmyr Gibbs has been that type of bell cow his entire career in college. So he's not worried about it. And why were we so worried about it? Because we got used to the 1-2 punch, and we like the little nickname given to Gibbs and Montgomery.
Sonic and Knuckles.
Yeah. Continue. Go ahead.
The other hero was Antoine Randall L for high stepping down the sideline on J-Mo's touchdown. I like that one. But both of those texts, they said Jahmyr Randall L, but their heel, both of them was the Seahawks. And I find this interesting because I think it's worthy, Shep. Not only did the Seahawks have a chance to help the Lions and they fell short, they also, that was their final home game of the season at Lumen Field, which was once, the 12th man. It's a huge home field advantage.
Well, it does get loud there. It gets really loud.
Yeah, sure. My point, I guess, they finished the season at home 3-6. They're an 8-7 team right now, and 6 of their losses have come at home. That is remarkable to me.
I didn't know that.
Their final 2 games of the season are on the road. They're done playing at Lumen Field.
I didn't know their home record. I didn't pay close enough attention to their home record. So that's a really good heel. I think we probably are more involved in that emotional response to the heel because Seattle didn't do us a solid, right? They were supposed to take care of business and beat Minnesota. On the other hand, this is a really good example of what I always say. Home field advantage is not always what it's cracked up to be. Seattle's the really good example right now. Dallas is a really good example. Dallas beat Tampa last night, Trent. It was just their second home win of the year. Okay. I think they're done with their home season as well. And they're 2-6 at home this season. The Lions, 2 losses, both at home. What do you respect more? Going 7-0 on the road. No one else is close to that.
Yeah.
Away from there. Well, Kansas City 6-1. 6-1. Okay. The loss at Buffalo.
Well, and the Seahawks now.
Look at this. I mean, look at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh leads their division. They're 5-4 on the road. Not enough is being said about Detroit's 7-0 road record. Really impressive. One more text. Go ahead.
Hero, Pistons. Everyone's wrapped up in football, but the Pistons got their best win of the season on Saturday.
Okay,
I think it's a decent point.
That was against Phoenix. Phoenix
on the road.
I don't want to take anything away from them. No Devin Booker. It's a big deal.
But still KD and Bradley Beal, and it's a good win.
But their best player is Devin Booker.
Sure.
Okay. Kevin Durant is a Hall of Famer. For a career, he's better. But right now, Devin Booker's their best player.
I agree. Okay. I agree.
So when we talk about the Pistons sometimes losing, what do we say? Well, that we didn't have Cade Cunningham. Oh, I'm not saying we use it as an excuse, but we use it as part of the reason. I like the win over Phoenix too. Give them credit for holding on. They were up big, and then it got a little closer. But Phoenix is probably right now going, well, no Devin Booker, and look at how we pushed him. Is that their best win when Phoenix is slightly above 500, or are they slightly below 500? It's one or the other. Is that their best win of the season?
You know what? I was looking back at this last night because I actually was talking to my dad about this. I think it is. I think all things considered, I'm a big point spread guy. They were 6-point dogs going out west, and to win that, and they never trailed. I mean, they led wire to wire. It was a great performance by Cade, great performance by Ivy. I think it's an impressive win.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's not the Suns, it's the game against the Knicks when they beat the Knicks.
Sure, that's fair, because they hadn't beaten the Knicks since 2019.
Well, and that's part of it, I suppose. I mean, I suppose you can use that into it, but how many of these guys were on this team in 2019? I look at it as where you're winning and who you're beating and how that team is playing and so on and so forth. So I thought the win in New York, but if you want to say this one trumps it, I'll buy. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, their heel. After their hero was the Pistons, their heel is the College Football Playoff Committee. Shocker there, Shep. People aren't satisfied.
Yeah, people are upset. This is what I asked people the other night, and I think it's a fair complaint. All right, who belonged in?
Well, I think they got the 12 right. I'm not going to beat the drum for Miami. I'm not going to beat the drum for Ole Miss because, like you laid out earlier in the show. Right. Win some games, man. You can't stumble like that down the end if you're Miami. You have to beat teams like Florida if you're Ole Miss.
Yeah, so I think the thing is it's probably Alabama. All right, that's probably who you're arguing with. An Alabama team, by the way, that lost at Vanderbilt. All right, I know we have to nitpick, but that's what we do. They lost at Vanderbilt and they lost at Tennessee. So are you going to take Tennessee out? Probably not. So more SEC love, and lost at Oklahoma. They got trucked at Oklahoma.
Bad.
So it's probably Alabama. And then who are you taking out? It can't be Clemson because Clemson won their conference tournament. Otherwise, get rid of the conference tournament championship game. All right? Get rid of it. So is it SMU? I could understand that. Is it Boise? No, it's not Boise. I don't think it can be just they got it wrong. I need to hear who was wrong and who needs to get put in there besides that, okay? And if it's Alabama, I just gave you some of this is why I said this doesn't solve anything. Alabama, you can nitpick all kinds of issues, right? And then you had Miami, who lost to Syracuse and Georgia Tech, for crying out loud. You can nitpick a lot. And I'm sure people are nitpicking all day long today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your calls. Thanks for your texts. We're back with you tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. X's and Bros across the great state of Michigan. Have a great Monday, everybody.
It's time to go in the